Wait for our.
No, wait a second. Hello, everybody. My name is Gary Fowler. It is great to have you here again for another edition of Lot Token VCTV. My name is Gary Fowler, and I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor. I've done 17 companies and 2 unicorns. I was on the original management team of Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion. And also Eva.ai. I'm the CEO, president, co-founder of GSD Get Shit Done Venture Studios, a premier AI and quantum venture studio. And today we're going to be talking about how to get early stage investing with my good friend Giampaolo Parigi from the Parigi family office. Giampaolo, can you say a few words about yourself?
Yes, welcome everyone. Thank you, Gary, for having me here today while we wait our other panelists. But I'll give a few words of introduction for those of you who don't know me yet. I'm Giampaolo Parigi. I'm a VC and a private equity investor, partner of 2 different private equity groups, one in California, the other one in Europe. And I'm also the chairman of our single family office up in New York. I've been over 33 years a serial entrepreneur and an investor. And I invest primarily in maritime infrastructure with my family and across a broad range of industry sectors with the other groups. I mean, from real estate to technology, going through manufacturing and services. And we do operate globally. I think today we have a very, very intriguing topic, Gary, because I think it's one of the evergreen topics on the agenda of any conferences where we have, startups and investors, how to reach out to those early stage investors that might be, anywhere in our, range of, contact. So
yeah,
I don't know, Gary, if you want.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So let's look at it. So Giampaolo, how does a company go about, let's say they're an early stage company, pre-revenue company, they're looking to go global. How do they get started? Where do they go for their initial funds?
Yes, well, we could take a look at this from different angles. I mean, definitely, I would always invite founders to go for family and friends first. And if they have exhausted that avenue, which depending on the founder's depth and reach might be exhausted pretty quickly, I think that the first inner circle beside family and friends is to try and deal with groups, entities that have had some prior relationship with the founders or with some of the managers earlier on. And because there's nothing that could really compare with existing previous relationships that have been successful. They create a bond of trust. They create, the foundation for further business. So I think that would be my first, suggestion, to try and reach out to those who already know you as a founder or you as a manager, and invite also the other co-founders, if you have any, and your board members and some of your top managers, or anyone in your even young company who is in the position of leadership in any of the departments where they are operating, to reach out for their own best connections in the industry, not only the financial industry, but also in the industry where a startup operates, because some of the best funding comes, Gary, as you very well know, from our very clients. Probably you will remember in some of the ventures that both you and I had started in the past, some of the best, sponsors and funders came from the very clients that needed our products and services.
Yeah, no, you're right. And, the thing is, when you're building a company, and I've been doing this for 37 years, and through my accelerator at GSD, and of course with Scope of a Startup Academy, we've had thousands through it. So what is some of the secret sauces? So let's look at it. When you're building a company up, Giampaolo's right. Go to your family and friends because they believe in you. You have the capability, credibility, and they trust you. But to go out further, how do you do it today? Use technology. Go out, write articles, go out, get visibility, because when it's all said and done, what's the first thing they're going to do is they're going to Google your name. They're going to get you on a call and they're going to Google your name. Who are you? And of course, with the pandemic being the way it is today, it's really difficult to get to somebody in person. So do that. The other thing is Gianpaolo's right. Go out to your network of contacts, go out to your network of friends, and reach out. Go out to your customers that have worked with you to see what they have to say, to see if they're willing to invest. The first money is the hardest money. It starts to become easier later. The other thing is make sure you go down through and give them something to invest in. Do the financials. Talk about what the projections are. You know, as my friend Guy Kawasaki says, enchant them. In fact, make sure you use Guy Kawasaki's rules for building a PowerPoint. Why? Because keep it simple, stupid. Keep it simple, keep it to the point, and make it enchanting. Make sure you can paint pictures with words. Pictures with words. Make it so that that person feels it, whatever it is. Marketing is really important in an early stage startup. Salesmanship's important. And if you look at it, who should be the person out there selling? It's the founders of the company. The founders of the company are the ones that go out and raise the money. The founders of the company are the ones that get the first deals. You need to do it, not your salespeople. You need to do it. So reach out. Make sure you create a very interesting 360-degree approach. So when people look at you, when people look at your company, that they feel that you're credible and you got the right stuff. So, Gianpaolo, so what do you think compared to 3 years ago? How is it today in terms of early stage funding compared to 3 years ago? Compared to
what you pointed out, the fact that today probably even the most recalcitrant of founders have to cope with online remote presentations versus in-person meeting. I think it's a given that the COVID finally contribute to bring in the equation for good, and it's gonna stay. I mean, this is not gonna be reverted back to the old standards. It's gonna be meeting by remote, and speaking on a remote medium, technology medium, it's entirely and vastly different than speaking in person, because a lot of people have, I would say, human interaction that make it easier for them to communicate when they're in person. I mean, whether it is a wink of an eye or whatever it is, that really it might be entirely gets lost on a online meeting. So there's a lot of tricks and I would say mechanics that could be used in an in-person meeting, like even shifting some of the objects you have on your desk, with a view to making yourself more comfortable or making your audience more comfortable. Well, you can't choose them in a remote meeting. So you really have to hone your skill on presenting by or via remote. And you mentioned, Gary, a very important point, figures. I mean, I am flabbergasted still today to see how many of the executive summaries we receive on a daily basis and on a weekly and on a monthly basis that do not contain exactly your request. What do you want from investors? I mean, we are inundated with pitch decks that have plenty of statistics. Everybody seems into this copycat business of cutting and pasting information taken from someone else's websites and the research reports, but they forget to sell us what they are in for, which is the money that they need for their business and possibly an idea of return on the money that we are going to put in as investors, an idea of payback if we were lenders or are lenders. There's no reference in the vast majority of the business plans to this. And I don't think any investor should go through the aggravation of going to page 82 of a business plan to scoop up this, which is vital information to an investor first and foremost. What do you want from me? How much do you need?
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. And, just one of the things for startups that are out there, think about how you tweak your message. And I'll give you some examples. Today, because we're inundated with data, every vertical market has a problem. And I call it infobesity after Alvin Toffler's book, Future Shock. We need to have incredible tools, no matter if we're in your manufacturing, farming 4.0, space. We need tools machine learning, deep learning, artificial intelligence to help us. So if you have those kind of technologies, highlight them. Make sure that you talk about them in your presentation. Maybe you talk about the impact they're going to have, why that gives you a competitive edge, why you're the team that can build it. The other thing is I want to say that one of the ways that you get early stage financing is you got to have a team that makes sense. What does that mean? You don't have 5 founders. Maximum, you have 3. You need somebody that can go out and is a visionary. You need somebody that's operations, and you need somebody that's finance. You need to be able to craft that message so it is so powerful, it touches their soul. And when you do that, you're going to get their attention. You will elicit a response in a very positive way. Paint pictures with words. Gianpaolo, one of the things that I did is at Stanford, I took the course, a couple of courses on how to do presentations, and they had acting coaches come in as well as business folks from the business school. And they actually graded us. And it was not easy either. They would give us scenarios. Today, Gary, you're coming in and there is a dilemma. There was some type of a scandal within your company. You're meeting with the press. And that's how we got graded. Practice what you preach. Practice. So one of the things that is important is get the guidelines that they use for TED. I did a TED talk, a TEDx, and a few years ago. And one of the things, they have a fascinating model how to present. Practice it. Steve Jobs took 6 weeks before he would get in the Moscone Center on stage and practice. He was not a good speaker. Just practice. Gianpaolo's right. The medium that we have today, now think about this. You can be wherever you are. You can be in Barcelona. You can be in Rome. You can be in Silicon Valley, but you can be everywhere. Use Zoom, use StreamYard, use those technologies to project yourself. You don't need to travel. And, quite frankly, I think we're going to have a hybrid model. Part of it's going to be, a lot of it's going to be Zoom. Then there'll be some in-person meetings. Use it to your advantage. I can tell you this from my perspective. I've saved a whole lot of money in the last year, actually year and a half, because I have not had to travel as much. So let's turn a negative into a positive. That's part of it. Go out also and go down through and use LinkedIn. Use the contacts. I got to tell you, I got one of the former chief security officer at Apple on my board just because I connected with him on LinkedIn and we had a mutual friend. Go out, look at it, do some due diligence. Make sure that your advisors make sense. If you're a technology company, what makes sense? One is you want to have somebody that is somehow in privacy and security because it's always going to come up. 2 is you want to have somebody that has name brand recognition. That is, I use people from Silicon Valley because that's where we are, but I get somebody that's got Stanford, Harvard background, somebody like Bill Reichert. Bill Reichert is Guy Kawasaki's partner in Garage and now at Pegasus Ventures. Somebody like him. And then the rule of 3 is the third person, somebody that has just done something incredible that's in the press, that has their name out there. So it shows that you are on target, on spot, and ready to go. You do that, Gary's rules of 3s, it will work. The other thing is, as I said, make sure you need to be looked at as a guru, as a genius in your field. Right. It doesn't cost anything to publish articles in Medium. Publish those articles. Do interviews. Get on podcasts just like we're doing here. Get your name out there so people say, geez, I know it. That's Gianpaolo.
And
go ahead, Gianpaolo.
Sorry, because you broke up. I lost your last few words. But I was saying also they have, founders have to learn how to compress their presentation, because if you do it online, you might be given 15 minutes where in the past on an in-person meet, you may have, if not anything out of professional courtesy, on Sandy Hill Road in Silicon Valley, maybe up to 45 minutes to 1 hour. So now we tend to be more, time efficient than ever before. Everybody is. So the point is, it requires a lot of skill to compress the presentation in 15 minutes, where in the past you do it in 45 or 1 hour. And a lot of people are not up to that game. In fact, most of the founders are trying to start with their pitch deck, even on a Zoom call. And it's always so disappointing to me and to other investors I know, because we want to hear again, because if you've been granted a meeting with an investor, chances are that the investor has some sort of interest in what you have to say. So we want to listen one more time to your pitch with your own words. You have to craft your own words, as Gary said. You don't have to just boom, go immediately to the pitch deck like you're some sort of, robot, because, the pitch deck, I could read it even without talking to you on a Zoom call. If I want you on a call, it's because we want to take a look from a personal angle first to try and understand what's the reading that you have about your own business. And if you are not competent and compelling enough to give us in maybe 1 or 2 minutes, the gist of it, probably not ready to sit in front of investors, whether it's by remote or in person. So again, there's a game changer that has been brought about by the dominant use of technology, for which even, and this is a paradox, even a lot of technology companies are not ready, because they had just been formatted with this idea of a presentation 101, and you have to go there and, inundate your audience with a pitch deck and the usual, pitches that looks like they've been written, and repeated by 1,000 people before you. There's nothing personal there. You got to make it personal, and you got to really live, breathe, sleep, and eat it.
Yeah. So, one of the things that's really important, startups, if you have revenue, talk about having revenue, because it shows what you have product market fit. Talk about how you've driven your business forward. Talk about how you've gotten those customers, and those marquee customers that you have, highlight them. Don't be ashamed. Some of the times, companies, I worked in Russia for almost 10 years. And one of the things that I saw there is that companies were very humble. Highlight the successes you have. Highlight the team they have and the awards that you've won. And don't go over the top, but make it personal and to the point. Make sure that they understand you are the company. You are the women. You are the guys that can make it happen, that can do the job, that can change the world. Listen, today, there are so many opportunities around the planet. We have challenges. We've got, by 2050, we're going to have to double the food supply. Look at technologies for optimization of the supply chain. Really important. Robotics, manufacturing, self-driving cars. It hinges around these incredibly new, advanced technologies that are going to change our world. Yes, there are other technologies out there and that are not involved in artificial intelligence and machine learning. But I got to tell you, probably 90% of them will be, because that's where our world's shifting. Remember, our population is going to go from 8.1 billion to 13 billion by the end of this century. We're going to have to optimize to be able to get the right kind of food, to help change the way that we use fuel. Think about this. I mean, it's not about, as Elon Musk said, startups, to get your funding, compelling problem. It's not about if we're going to be out of fossil fuels, it's when. Look at those kind of challenging problems and focus on those. Make sure that your startup addresses issues. And the other thing is, startup, it's not a bad thing to pivot. It's not about failing. It's like driving down the street. If you make a U-turn, that's not a failure. That's just that you had to make a decision. Highlight that with the investors. Tell them, say, listen, this is what we've done, and this is the kind of traction that we have at this point to be able to change the world. So you have, I believe, the greatest opportunity out there, because you have that audience that we've never had before. It used to be a lot harder. You didn't have pitching competitions. I just did Gianpaolo in Czech Republic with Steve Wozniak from Apple, and when we were on stage, we had 396,000 people watch us. And I was like the drafting car behind the race car. He was a race car, but I was still on the same stage. And use those venues to get those introductions to investors. So what would you do? Go through the list of all the investors there and say, listen, I just want to follow up. My name is Gianpaolo. I was at this particular competition. Or Martin, I was at a competition. Just want to follow up. Let me tell you about our incredible company and how we can help you make more money. Go out, use the technology wisely, do your research. Don't make it linear, make it multi-pronged, and use that to be able to find those. Listen, the family offices like Gianpaolo are out there because you know what? They want to make money. They want to look for those opportunities where they can 4x, 5x, 18, 20x their returns. You have that capability, but tell them why. Gianpaolo?
Yes, and you're absolutely right on the money, especially when you pitch family offices and single family offices. You got to get intel, because family offices, unlike venture capitalists that are investing primarily what is now third-party money under management. So they became asset managers for all practical purposes. Single-family offices are managing their own capital, but they invest in sectors that are meaningful for the family. So you got to get intel. If a family is investing in, for example, infrastructure, don't pitch them with something which is, genetics or biosciences, because chances are that they may not have an interest, or they may not be qualified, or they may not even tackle that. You got to really get some intel. And a lot of founders, I think they're suffering from this hurried syndrome. They want to go to the market very quickly in the assumption that the sooner they hit the investors, the better it is for them. But the reality, nearly invariably, most founders are never ready when they reach the single family offices, because they don't know how to press the right buttons. And maybe they have a good product, but they fail to remember that they have revenues. They fail to remember and to mention that they have intellectual property rights. And one thing that I find particularly difficult that founders do not address as they should is the fact that even on early stage, they come up and around for what is actually the second round of funding. Like this morning, I was pitched with a company that has already raised $6.4 million and has produced revenues for $120,000. And now they're looking for another $2.5 million. Now, the first question that I would have is, okay, so $6 million produced nearly only $100,000. And this may be entirely reasonable. But the point is, you have to explain me why that happened. And now with only $2.5 million, what can you do better than what you did with six? Are you, retweaking your game? Are you correcting some mistakes? Were you simply operating in the dark and now you have some lights that, we don't know which is? You have to tell us. You got to come out right and say, okay, show the process that lead you from receiving $6 million on round one and to still have the necessity of getting another 2.5. What was that you didn't budget correctly on the first round that left you with a short blanket? Or if it wasn't a short blanket, there's been some major upheaval or change in the market. Make sure that you define what those changes were and why you had been affected. Because maybe it's not your responsibility, but the way you pitch make it sound like it is your responsibility to know how much money you need on round one. And you can't remain, in the middle while you're crossing the river. You have to reach the other riverbank. So this is very important. I find it one of the most underestimated aspects in a pitch.
Yeah, so one of the things, startups, that's really important, Gianpaolo raises a great point. One of the reasons that you want to have a great board of advisors, one of the reasons that you want to have great board of directors, because they can give you that kind of advice that you really need to help position your company properly. Because as Gianpaolo says, you don't want to be in the middle of the river or crossing the chasm. You want to be to the other side. The last thing you need is a flash flood coming in and washing it down. You need to go down through and move forward as quickly as you can. And you're right, Gianpaolo, if you have $6 million that you've already got invested and you're asking for another 2.5 with $100,000 in or euros in revenue, you got some explaining to do. Why is this $2.5 million? What am I going to get? Is it going to be 10x that? Is it going to be 100x that? Excuse me, what's going to happen next? So you've got to explain it. And the other thing is use of funds. Make sure as you're going down through, when you talk about the use of funds, that the funds make sense. One time I saw somebody, Gianpaolo, that got an investment. And one of the things the guy did was went out and bought a BMW, a company car, literally. And it was... you can't go out. Look at these funds. Is this your lifeblood? Be prudent, be prudent with them. Make sure that the dollars or euros count, or whatever currency you have, count to be able to get something done, count to make an impact on your business, help that company grow to the next level. So there's money out there. We're coming up to the end of the show. There is money out there, and Gianpaolo, you can close us out. There's money out there. There's opportunities for each and every one of you. Get out there, do some research on family offices, do some research on individuals, high net worth individuals that are investing, do research on early stage VC, because they're there. Get out there, do pitching, get the visibility, create an online presence, Don't be afraid to go out and ask. Have a blended team that makes sense. Have those board of advisors that they'll like. Make sure you got a board of directors that makes sense, and also make sure you set your company up properly, because when they look at it, they want to make sure it is an investable investable organization that will be able to go further. Make sure that you got the right legal structure set up and the money's pouring in. So, Giampaolo, over to you.
Yes, absolutely. Again, if you pitch single family offices, you have to think that the IRR may not be the first driver that family offices have when they decide to invest with you. Maybe they like you as a person. Maybe they like you, the industry you're in which they were not participating till yesterday. Maybe they want to get more depth in an industry in which they already are. So the IRR, again, may not be the first element that family office investors have in their mind when deciding to listen to you and teaming up with you later on. So you got to really put yourself in their shoes, and you're not talking to a bank officer. You're not talking to someone that is going to extend you a loan and trying to get some guarantees. They're really buying your proposition, they're buying you as an individual first and foremost, meaning your character, your personality. Don't hide or conceal information that might be inappropriate to hide and conceal. For example, you have one of your board member who's sick with a bad ailment or maybe cancer. You got to reveal that, not only because those are SEC or European Union disclosure rules, but you owe it to yourself, and you owe it to the people that are ready to join you in the fight, in the battle, and put capital behind you, and they put their name behind you. You got to reveal things. Do not withhold information. Disclose it, because if we know that there is an issue and a problem, together we can address it, tackle, or even cure it. But if you don't tell us, you're only going to get us upset, and you're going to ruin relationships.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And how can people reach you, Giampaolo? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, they can reach me on LinkedIn.
Sounds great. So everybody out there, I thank you for joining the show today. My name is Gary Fowler, and I am your host on La Token VCTV. Stay tuned. I'll have my next Founders Report in 2 weeks. I appreciate the entire La Token and VCTV team for making this possible today, especially Hasmek, who set this up. Again, my name's Gary Fowler. You can reach me on LinkedIn and Twitter, and check out my shows. I'd love to have you attend. Stay happy, stay safe, and most importantly, stay healthy. Take care of yourself, and talk to you again soon. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.